Thank you. So I actually already did a presentation at AppSecUSA about this subject, bot detection, about 2 years ago. And at the time, that was around the time where we launched our first version of Bot Manager. And to be honest, at the time, I really thought that by now, I'd be done with this subject. But the truth is we're not, and we never will be. And that's kind of the reason why I decided to come back this year, is to kind of reflect a bit on our experience at Akamai building a bot detection system and the challenge that we're seeing. And if you ever want yourself, if you're a website owner and you want to build your own detection, bot detection mechanism, then at least you'll be aware about what you're facing. And it's a long road ahead. So I've been at Akamai for about 12 years. I started as a technical support engineer and then moved as a solution architect in our professional services organization. And during that time, I spent a lot of time helping customers dealing with issues that were mostly caused by bot. And back in we were calling this DOS issues. It was all about DOS. It was not this concept of bot detection or bot management. We were talking about DOS, but at the end of the day, since the beginning, it's always been about automated traffic wreaking havoc on a website. So I've had a lot of first-hand experience dealing with bots, and eventually, after a few years, working as a solution architect, developing some custom solution for our customers to better deal with the problem, eventually I managed to convince enough people in my organization to eventually go for building a bot detection product. So today I want to kind of go over kind of the history about how we've gone about this and then talk about some of the challenges we're facing, how bot reacts to our detection mechanism, and how we need to evolve constantly our product to keep, stay ahead of the curve, basically. And also I'll talk about some good practices as a website owner, what can you do to help to facilitate the bot protection against bot, because sometimes some site architecture make it that much more difficult to be able to deal with the problem efficiently. So it's been a long journey so far, and we started with a simple detection mechanisms, and gradually we had to improve our detection so to kind of stay ahead of the curve. And also along the way, we kind of came up with the idea of the concept of bot management, because it's not necessarily about just detecting them. What we realized as well is that customers just didn't want us to simply detect them. They also wanted us to kind of tell them who they were, categorize them, and also they wanted to have some kind of flexibility on how we respond to the bot traffic depending on who they are, where they're coming from, and what they're after. So anyway, we started that big adventure of creating this bot detection product back in 2015. So we were not the first one to enter that space. We're not the pioneers. There was already a few companies already out there that were doing it. But Akamai being such a large player in the web industry, we carry somewhere around 30% of the World Wide Web. So it made sense for us to actually have a way to detect and manage bot at the edge, and then that provides a great offload to our customers' web servers. So we spent the major part of 2015 talking to customers, gathering requirements, and try to understand what's the story. So what they're worried about. Is it about scraper? Is it about fraud? Is it about account checker? And at the time, really, the story was mainly around scraper. Account checker was kind of starting to becoming an issue, but that was probably not the main issue. So in the first iteration, we decided to go for building a product that will focus on being able to detect scrapers. So basically, bots that try to harvest all the data from your website, and then they use that in some kind of ways, and that could potentially hurt your business. So after we did some kind of gathering and stuff like that, then from our market research, so to speak, and also from the research we did on how to best detect that bot traffic, what became evident is that we need a solution that could, of course, detect bots, but also categorize them, provide good visibility on them, so that we can show customer can see, okay, the bot is what is the bot doing, what the bot is after, and also be able to efficiently respond to them, and depending on the type of the bots, and provide the most adequate response. Like, for example, a search engine, you want to make sure that you're prime citizen because they can help position your site, makes your site visible on the internet, whereas some random bots that we detect through various detection mechanisms, you don't necessarily want them to access your traffic, your data. And of course, your users, you want them to have full access to your content. So in a way, bot detection or bot management is a way also to kind of provide what traffic makes it to your web server, and it's kind of like a quality of service mechanism in a way. So in early 2016, we launched our first version, and the detections that we added, what we call passive detection, because all the day was looking at the requests that were coming to us, looking at the header signature, looking at the user agent, looking at the reputation, looking at how fast they were making requests. So, and based on this, based on how much anomalies we found in the request, then we could probabilistically determine whether you were a bot or a human. And that actually worked out pretty well. That got us so far. We were doing pretty well in the scraper kind of story. We could detect a fair amount of scraper, more than we could ever before. So that was kind of a nice victory for us. But of course, the bot evolved, and as we were adding more, we were implementing that solution to more and more customers. Then bots started to realize that there was this new detection mechanism going on, and they evolved, and they started to be more trying to pay more attention in the way the header signature looked like. And so then some of the detection started to not being so efficient. So we quickly moved on into a more dynamic detection strategy, which involves testing whether the client support cookies, whether the client support JavaScript, and if they do, let's collect a fingerprint to look at the characteristics of the machine. And once we get our fingerprint, let's look for elements that are typical of bots, like headless browsers. So how do we recognize anomalies that are typical of Phantom.js or other headless Chrome or headless browsers, this kind of thing. So that also got us so far. So we launched this in the end of 2016. But then around that time, the story around bot kind of changed again. That was more around account checker fraud, gift card fraud, people trying to guess the PIN number associated to a gift card. So we had to kind of adapt to that and find a solution, the right solution. What we had so far, all the passive detection and active detection wouldn't cut it. So we start to get interested in behavior anomaly detection. So behavior anomaly detection is not only, so the detection we have so far, we're really looking at what the requests we're receiving look like, how fast they're coming in, what's the reputation, and also the characteristics of the machine based on the JavaScript fingerprint. So we knew a lot about the machine, but we didn't know anything whether there was actually a human controlling that machine. And the best way to do this is to check if we see some key press, if we see some mouse movement, if we see some mouse click, if we see some touch on the screen, this kind of thing. So hence the idea of moving forward with behavior anomaly detection. From there was a choice for us to build it ourselves, or also to look around to see if there was any startup that cannot do this kind of thing. So we weigh in the pros and cons, and finally we decided to We found this cool company, startup called Cyberfen, and we tried their product, we liked it. The customer we tried it with, they liked it too, and they bought the product. So we thought if they like it, and we like it, we might as well buy the company. And we acquired the company, and we spent the most of the early quarters of 2017 integrating that solution into our product, Bot Manager. So there's two aspects of it. There's when you do behavior anomaly detection, the way the way you connect this behavioral data depends on the type of clients. If you're for web clients, regular browsers, then you're going to use JavaScript because that's what the browser understands. But for a native app, JavaScript doesn't work. So then we need an SDK for that to be installed on the app so that we can collect all that behavioral data. So what we released in early 2017 was really the web solution, and then we had a subsequent release at the beginning of this year actually, where we introduced the solution for native apps. So now today, with the Bot Manager product, we are pretty well positioned where we have pretty complete solution where we can look at the header, the request, what it looks like. We can look at the characteristics of the machine, and we can look as well at how the user is using that machine. But it's still not quite enough because as soon as we put all of this into a lot of sites, then bots operators start to evolve their botnet and try to fake all that behavioral data. They try to replay the telemetry or this kind of thing. It's easy enough to collect the telemetry, and sometimes they go as far as trying to reverse engineer whatever we're doing, and they're going to try to find a way. So we have more and more have to look at additional signals that's available to us, and through some statistical models and differentiate between what really looks legit, what's really human, and what's really not human. Because it's always, so hard as they're trying, so far they're still not able, just like, if we're looking at a lot of parameters, then there's always going to be something that's going to tell us at some point, this is not quite right, this is not quite human, doesn't fit the typical human behaviors, doesn't fit the typical human, the request characteristic we see from a client. So the point is, this problem of doing bot detection, it's very hard, and it's always a never-ending story. It's an arms race. We keep trying to stay ahead of the curve, but the problem we have is just like any company, we have a fairly limited resource, engineering resource and research resource. But it seems like we are facing a very large pool of people who, that's what they do. Pretty much for them, attacking a website and taking over an account that's their business model. That's once an account is taken over, once a gift card is taken over, they resell it on the dark web. So that's how they make money. So they have a big incentive for doing whatever they can to break what we're doing. So it's a never-ending story. So if you ever think about building your bot detection product, I would recommend that you join a company that already has a bot detection product rather than build your own, unless you're really, having a staff of at least 10 people and continue doing this for the rest of your life. I think I could come back 2 years from now doing another talk, and I probably will tell you I'm not done yet. We're still fighting those bots. So I talked a bit about bot management. Well, what is it really? So I think I alluded to that already. So really, it's about being able to respond to the bot more intelligently. Because sometimes what we discovered in the early days of Bot Manager, even when we didn't have very strong detection, is that if you have not so strong detection, but you have very strong response strategy, then you can get away with fooling the bots for quite a while. They're not going to, if you keep feeding them data, even if the data is not is not real data. You're feeding them something from a honeypot, or you feed them cache data that's somewhat dated, somewhat old. They won't realize right away. So you might get away with having some average and being able to still efficiently deal with them and offer a better quality of service for your regular users. So it's basically a continuous challenge. As our bot detection product evolves, so do bots as well. So we try to, they really innovate, and sometimes we feel that we should hire them. So we need to find a way to actually send them a typical response specific to targeting the bot operator, so that if they're really looking for a job, we have openings in our data science group. But so the typical issues these days that we're facing, the kind of attacks, like 3 years ago that was all about scraping, but what we hear from customer now, it's really about account checker. So account checker is really a bunch of credentials were stolen from a company. It was published on the dark web. Somebody bought that list, and what they do is replay all these credentials against multiple websites using off-the-shelf attack tools. You can find some on GitHub, or they build their own that target a particular website to fit their structure more closely. And once they find a match, then they publish on that match on the dark web for somebody else to pretty much buy it, and that somebody else that they will take it over and commit what is the fraud they want to commit. Gift card and loyalty point fraud is also a big issue. So somebody trying to guess what's a PIN associated to the gift card ID. And then that's resold somewhere else. So you as a user or as a gift card, then all of a sudden you go buy a product and you want to use your gift card, and your gift card is empty. And that costs e-commerce customer a lot of money. And with our product, we were able to resolve this. For airline or hotels or cruise line, one of the big deals for them is checking of inventory. So checking how many seats there is left on the flight, or the price of those seats, and this kind of thing. And to some extent, depending on how their site is architected, sometimes it causes them that pretty much the availability of the seats is completely locked. So regular users won't even be able to buy those seats, so to reserve those seats. So that's a big problem for them. All right, so we've been working with customers for quite a while now with bot detection, and what's interesting for us is to kind of observe how the bots react once we put our product on the website and when we start mitigating that activity. So typically what we see on the early days when we put the product in line, then we realize that we're dealing with bots that are not that clever. It's just pretty much a somewhat sophisticated script that have somewhat well-formed header signature. They're usually pretty good at spoofing to pretend that I'm Firefox or I'm Chrome. And then the distribution also is a must. So they distribute their botnet pretty widely. 10,000 nodes or 100,000 nodes is pretty common. And you see that spanning all the continents, so it's hard to pinpoint. And every single node is only sending a handful of requests per minute. So none of the things like reputation or rate control or request anomaly detection, header anomaly detection will not detect this kind of traffic. But then with the behavior anomaly detection, then you realize there's nobody really behind the machine, so that's how we managed to get them. So as soon as we start mitigating the traffic, like a week or two after, typically what we see is the bots get blocked, so they will try whatever they can for changing their header signature, spread even more, and slow down again their request rate, this kind of thing. Rotate the user agent on every single request, just in case you've tried to block them based on user agent. And then when none of this works, then they start the replay game. So, with the product, we inject session cookies, and we also collect some telemetry. So what they end up doing is they see what we're doing, so they're trying to replay a valid user scenario. So they go as a regular user on a website, they try to record all of this and replay all of this. So that's a replay game, and of course we have to have detection to make sure that those replays are well detected, and then we classify them as bot. So at that point, the least motivated attackers, they will pretty much move on to a different target, and that target may not necessarily be a different website. It might be a different endpoint that offers similar services on your website. So for example, login. You may have a login for, a login API for a user to log in onto their account, a login API when they log in during checkout. You may have a different login API for your native app. And if all of them are not equally protected, then it will go for the one that's not protected, and they will continue their thing. So that's why it's also important that you protect all your endpoints equally. Otherwise, they're going to go after it. But now, if all your endpoints are protected, the least motivated, they will just move on to a different target. We've seen that. But it depends on how big of a target you are. Like, if the value of breaking an account on your site is super high and they can make a lot of money from it, then they will try a lot more things. They will continue. Also, at this point, what we're seeing is that attackers who pretty much downloaded a attack tool from GitHub and don't really know how it works. They just know how to use it. Then as soon as the attack tool is not efficient against the site, they will move on to something else. But for the one who control their own attack tools, who develop their own attack tools, then they will try a bit harder. So the next step for the ones that are more motivated is potentially move on. They realize that we are doing behavioral anomaly detection. So the next step for them is to move on to go from a script, very well written script, very sophisticated script, to headless browser, to kind of replicate, to mimic what a typical client or browser would do. So that's the kind of things that we're able to detect as well. Headless browsers, this kind of thing, have a particular signature, and we have to be able to detect that. So at this point, some go further. Bot operators, in some extent, are an extension of our QA because they are pretty good sometimes at finding bugs in our code. Some exceptions that are not handled properly. They will find them, and if they find them, they're going to go after it, and they're going to use it for a while to bypass our detection. So. In a way, for us, it's good to improve our product, but that's another thing they do is try to see how they can crack and find vulnerability into the code. The other things that we've seen as well is they try to DOS us. They try to DOS our detection engine. The theory here is that if detection engine is down, then hopefully will fail open, meaning that detection will be bypassed. And we've seen that as well. So it's very important for the system detection engine to be scalable, to be able to handle very large attack. So bot detection market, a few words about this. It's pretty, it's not very big industry, or at least it's not very old. It's about 5 years old. There's quite a bunch of companies out there, web security companies out there who say they have a bot detection product, but really if you look at it in details, there are actually not that many who have something that's mature enough to be able to sustain sophisticated attacks. So if you're after bot detection products, then you have to be careful. You have to go for something that's mature enough and can handle things properly. To me, we've evaluated quite a lot of this company while we were in the market to buy a startup. And I know really about like 4 or 5 worldwide who are decent, offer decent product. Detection accuracy is one of the big deal. So, you know, we have OSIS detection. None of the detection is perfect. And we always have to balance between false positive and false negative. It's the worst thing that can happen. You put a detection mechanism. If you have too much false positive, it's just useless because you won't be able to detect, you know, to take action on that detection. So it's, you know, it's kind of pointless. You know some of the bots, but you don't know you don't know how to act on it. So it's always a balancing game to kind of tune the detection method in such a way that we have a good balance between false positive and false negative. So that's why for detection products, you have to have multiple detection mechanisms because each one of them pretty much compensate for each other's flaws so that you can set the threshold of each detection technique high enough so that you don't have false positive, but then, you know, another detection algorithm will actually take over for the flaws of the previous one. So you can't just go for a detection mechanism, a detection system that offer you one single methodology. It's just not going to work. Kind of talk about that, so I'll skip because we're kind of running out of time. So let me go on to best practices. So things that you can do as a website owner to kind of help deal with the bot problem. What I see sometimes is developer, you know, they want to develop an API for login, for example, and having a single purpose API for all my type of client, it makes sense as a development because then you only have to maintain one API. To protect this, though, it's harder because you know, a native app and a web client, and you know, if you also make that endpoint available to your partners to log in or this kind of thing, those different type of clients, they won't have the same capabilities. So the way you protect them is completely different. And then for a protection system to be able to differentiate who's who and, you know, what's their capability so that you can challenge them the right way is difficult. So ideally, you want to create an API for each type of client. So one API for your web, one API for native app, and then if you have partners you want to provide access to as well, separate that because otherwise it's kind of difficult to deal with. Protect all your endpoints. If you have multiple endpoints, just like I said earlier, protect them equally because otherwise they will go for the weakest link. And you know, I've seen some customers, they know about their latest endpoint, what's current on their website, and lately we worked with a customer, and they found that they were under attack, and but we couldn't see on our product. We're not detecting anything. We're not seeing any false negative either. So what's going on? And then realized that the attacker were after an API that had been decommissioned about like 2 years ago, but they were still live. So it was something legacy, but still live. So the attacker was going after it. And so we had to quickly bring it, you know, add protection into it, and then the attack went away. So clean up your endpoint you know, if you don't use them anymore, decommission them for good. When you have a bot detection set up, so, you know, I talked about the accuracy of each detections. It's very important that each detection is tuned at the right level so that you can take action on that detection. Otherwise, if it's not tuned, you're going to see a bunch of false positive, and you know that's not going to work. The reflex, typically that I see, some of the customers we're working with, they're saying, yeah, it's okay. Well, we're okay with false positive, and then when we detect a bot, we'll block that bot. But so then, what does it mean? You're gonna find you see that bot, you're gonna define a signature for that because you're gonna see, okay, it's got this user agent, it's got this header signature, it's got this particular characteristic, it's coming from these IPs. So you're going to create your custom signature. You're gonna say, okay, to block this bot, this is the characteristics. Great, it's gonna work for maybe 2 hours if you're lucky. After 2 hours, they're going to change your game and you're back to square one. You have to play that whack-a-mole game Whack-a-mole game is fun at the arcade, but don't play it in real life because honestly, you're gonna be getting very frustrated, and it's just not working. So it's best to optimize your detection mechanisms as offered by the product or whatever you're building yourself, and just take action on that detection mechanism instead of trying to extract, single out one particular botnet, identify it, and then try to block it this way. It's just not working long term, so it's not the best way to go. So with that, that was kind of my story around bot detection. It's a hard problem. If you still want to go for it, good luck, but you're in for the long haul. Thank you. So we may have a few minutes if there's any questions. Yeah.
How do you know if you need a bot detection program? Is it like something every company needs, or will it just be
So how do you define whether you need a bot detection program? It's really depends whether you see any kind of attacks, if you're vulnerable. I see a lot of e-commerce customers, they're pretty much all vulnerable to all these, attacks, account takeover and this kind of thing. So, pretty much the way it starts is you're getting attacked. So then that's where customers can start to call us. Yes. So your question is there any vendor out there who are the best, who are on top of it? Yeah, I mean, I would say there's probably 4 or 5 of us who are really kind of neck and neck in terms of quality of detection on a level of maturity. So pretty much if you're after a detection mechanism, a product that does detection, you need to kind of look in those 5 vendors because that's probably where it's going to provide you the best value. There's also quite a bunch of startups, but with those you have to be careful about their level of maturity and their ability to kind of be flexible and change things rapidly. Sometimes they're very flexible because they're startups, so you're going to try to please you no matter what. But then maybe scaling will be an issue. We've seen many times bots trying to DOS our detection engine. So yeah, you have to look at different aspects. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, everyone.